on to Lieutenant Colonel Brimms, General Brimms, to complete the case of the proposition.
Thank you very much. If I could pick up some of the points made from the floor, first of all, our friend from Ireland. The article by Andrew Neil last weekend was indeed an excellent one. Actually, I think the politics of left and right, the working class, those are over. Over. We've got a new politics. But in that, Andrew Neil, who I suspect is a little older than me, went back to his own school. Andrew Neil went to a grammar school. He got there because he passed an exam at age 11 and he got an education that his family could never have afforded. And it was the best advertisement for bringing back grammar schools I've ever seen. But the left and right of politics, those are over. There's a new type of politics coming on. And I think that two Eds know that too. The lady from Wales, she is your queen, it is your government, and if you do end up independent, I should be fascinated by your finances. And the lady here with your two brothers, you're absolutely right. That is the point. That is the point. It is because of that, because there is a wider bit of politics. But in the end, Kipling wasn't wrong. You know, it's Tommy this and it's the bloody infantry we have to do, and I was one. And as for picking up the point I made about the Department of International Development, I don't actually object to them spending the money, but I think there should be a better audit to make sure it's effective, because I don't think actually the equation works that giving somebody money makes them our friend, and therefore we don't need to spend the money on what you call big guns. I just don't accept that logic. It doesn't work out. It doesn't compute. Our opponents today have focused very much on Iraq and Afghanistan, and these are deeply controversial activities. But they're being conducted not just by British, but by NATO forces and coalition forces who are fighting, as you rightly point out, for their fellow soldiers and doing the right thing as soldiers. Because soldiers, we don't get the opportunity. When the Iraq War came along, and I was commanding the British troops in the invasion of Iraq, yes, we had a long debate about the rights and wrongs, but we had to do what it was our duty. You can't sit it out. Going back to Blackadder, you can't sit this one out with the fat wheezy boys with a note from Matron. It's not possible, and it won't work. No society could let that work. And I think that's got to be understood. And indeed, as somebody from the floor said, the reason for going to Afghanistan is crystal clear. It's supported by a UN resolution, and it was an invoking of a NATO treaty obligation. And we still are. And I suggest that actually the argument is the wrong bit. The jury's out on these things. Of course it is, because they're not over. We need the traffic. The jury will vote on the conduct as much as whether you should do it or not. And I think that a lot of important points will come out there. But we've had a pretty skewed version of history. The dates were good, and the chronology was good, but the interpretation was frankly bizarre, and as far as contemporary world, pretty idealistic. But you did correctly invoke Clausewitz. And Clausewitz was absolutely, probably the most important military historian, analyst and strategist, because of the many things he said, and he said, and he's quoted and misquoted a lot. But what he said was, there has to be political control of the armed forces. The armed forces have to be used for a political purpose. They have to be controlled politically. It then works. If the politics is abusive, and there are very good examples recently of people who've abused their armed forces, for example, Bosnia, and by the way, everybody in Bosnia were pleading for us to come in and sort it out. They wanted us to come in, the United Nations, they wanted us to come in as NATO, not United Nations, and sort out their ghastly civil war. The people of Kosovo, the Kosovars wanted us in. The people of Sierra Leone, they wanted us in. The people of East Timor, they wanted us in. And I have to tell you, a lot of people in Iraq wanted us in. In the first bit of it, we were very much welcomed by the Shia in the south. And I can tell you, lots of the Kurds still appreciated us. They invited me to go back and be Vice-Chancellor of their university, for goodness sake, in Erbil, in Kurdistan, northern Iraq. I spent 2 years living there. They are hugely relieved, pleased and thankful, and will say it every day. So please don't forget that. So, I think at the end, there are some political judgments to be made, and then there's some military judgments. But you can't back off. The only one time you can back off is if you are given an illegal order, then it is your duty to say so. And that would happen. And if you didn't, then you'd be up in front of your war crimes and you'd be facing a serious cross-examination such as my friend would give you. So what I say to you, we have got to be ready to use force, because if we're seen as not being ready to use force, then other people will walk all over us. And make sure that you look at idealism, analyse it, look at what it really means. Is it real? Is it real? Or is it actually Blackadder? Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Lieutenant General. We now move on to the vote, which is done by the ever-democratic method of acclamation. So, all those in favour of the motion shout aye, and all those against shout no. I'll once more read out the motion. This House would fight for Queen and country. All those in favour? Aye!